Okay, so before we begin, let me show you what we have here on the gauge cluster. As you can see, the ABS light is on. So I already have the scan tool hooked up to the vehicle. And if we take a look, we'll read the trouble code here. And I'll include a link if you are interested on purchasing a scan tool that can read ABS sensors, as well as you could just go to the local auto parts store and they'll do it for free. So left front wheel speed sensor open or short, left front wheel speed sensor failure. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, a good location to jack up the vehicle is the front cross member. On many Hondas and Acuras, they actually have an arrow pointing right to the front cross member. Very, very good, solid point on the vehicle. So once you remove the wheel, as you can see, you have two lines. So really this is the hydraulic line. You can quickly tell this is the brake fluid line because look how thick the hosing is. But if you take also a look at this line, you can see that the electrical connection goes into the vehicle, the engine compartment. So we know this is the wheel sensor. Now again, on the scan tool, let me turn on the light here. It said left. Left is your driver's side, right is the passenger side, okay? So this is a 10mm bolt here, so let's go ahead and remove that. Now this is something I attempted to do around a month ago, and you'll see in a moment why I had to stop. I was going to continue and wrap up the repair here, but I figured let me do a quick video because this is quite common, especially with Hondas and Acuras. And as you can see, when I took out the sensor, it just completely dislodged from the body itself. Let me just make sure you guys can see this. Okay. So what I started to do is drill out the leftover of the sensor in the knuckle, and I just stopped. I figured let me at least do a video because you may be worried if I drill too far, it can hit the axle right here. So what I'm going to do, just to give you, it's also easier to film on my end, but just so you get a better view, I'm going to remove this entire knuckle. This entire steering knuckle. We're just going to remove it. The reason behind that is because I want to show on how close you will be to the axle if you try to drill this out on your vehicle. So obviously you don't have to remove this by any means. You could do it, you could just drill it the way it is, but let me at least show you on how close you will be to that axle. Okay, before I like to begin, I always soak down any part that we're going to remove with some PB Blaster. You can always use WD-40. In a case like this vehicle is 16 years old, lives in the Northeast United States, really nasty winter weather throughout the year. And after 16 years, sometimes these bolts can be pretty nasty to remove. You don't want them to break. So just soak everything down with some penetrating oil. So let's start by removing the caliper. And what you can do is just give it a quick tap with a heavy hammer. And that's it. And sometimes you'll find a bracket for the brake hose. Okay, and it's a good idea just to put the fastener right back so you know exactly where it is. This flips up. Okay. Still look to be in good shape. And then you have the caliper bracket, which is held in. Typically there's 17 or 19mm bolts, one there, another one right there. Okay, again, good solid 3-4 pound hammer, big help. These ratcheting wrenches, by the way, are awesome. They're from Harbor Freight. You could typically find them on sale for $20, and they give you a lot of different sizes. Big time saver. Okay, now Honda is known to use these Phillip type screws in the rotors, or in their rotors I should say. A lot of manufacturers use them today. What you can use is a hand impact set because they're really, really tight. They can seize on. This makes the job so easy. Here we go. So as you can see, we're very lucky. This rotor comes off without a problem, which doesn't happen very often, especially if you live in a winter climate. So what you could do, you have two 6mm ends. Many rotors have these 6mm ends, and all that you do is you go to your local auto parts store, you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, so on and so forth, and grab two screws that are, you want machined, not threaded, machined 6mm machined ends. And all that you do is you just slowly turn the screw here, and as you turn it, it will strike the hub and push off the rotor. If you don't have these 6mm ends, I'll include a link for a wheel bearing replacement we did years ago, and I just slowly struck the circumference of the rotor with a hammer. You can also use a puller. So there's different techniques, but if you have these 6mm ends, by far your fastest and easiest bet. So now we need to remove the axle nut from the axle, and as you can see, there's a little dimple. We just need to push back that dimple and remove the axle nut. Now there's two ways to remove these. They're very tight. In this case, it's 180 foot-pounds from the factory. Option one is you can use an impact cordless gun. That's what I'm going to use. Option two is, if you don't have one of those, before you remove the rotor and the brake pads, have someone press on the brake hard and then use a breaker bar and back out this axle nut. Okay, the key is use a breaker bar. Without a breaker bar, these are really, really hard to remove. Now, just in case you don't know what a breaker bar is, this is what it looks like. It's incredibly long, gives you a long handle, as you can see, 18.5 inches. The axle nut happens to be 32mm, so this is our socket. But this is what you're looking at. You could pick up one of these from Harbor Freight, Amazon for around $8-9. Alright, just like that, okay? Real nice tool to have, for sure. And as you can see, nice fluid. That's what you want to see. Sometimes you have to tap the end with a mallet, but you just have to be able to move it just a little bit. So now I just want to start removing anything that's attached to this knuckle. So right here we have a metal brace for the brake line, or the ABS line I should say. So now I'm going to deal with the upper, that's up here, the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint. A lot of different ways you could do this. I'll show you the way I'm going to do it. Let me just make sure you guys can see this. This is the lower ball joint. Okay, so let's start with the upper first. So now we need to remove the cotter pin. Take notice of how this is shaped. So you have the top at a 90-degree angle. Okay, and then the bottom is just flat, 180 degrees. Again, replace these. You don't want to reuse them. There we go. Can be a little tricky sometimes, but there we go. Okay. And then this happens to be a 17mm. They're usually not very tight. Now, two options you have to remove this from the upper mount. Number one is you can use a 3-pound hammer. Strike it very, very hard. Eventually, it will pop out. Option two is you can use a service set. This is a lot easier, in my opinion. You can rent these. You can buy one for maybe around $50-55. Just make sure you push up the boot. Let me give you a closer view here. Okay, so you push up the boot around the adapter. And then slowly turn this. And there you go. Now that was quite easy. Let's do the lower ball joint. Typically it's a little bit harder than that, but that's all. It makes it really, really easy using a service set. So now we need to remove the steering tie rod. Again, cotter pin. So I just hit my first roadblock. As you can see, the cotter pin completely snapped off on the front, also on the back. So we'll need to drill this out. And then on the bottom here, this is a 17 millimeter. And as before, you can hit right here with the heavy hammer. You don't hit the tie rod itself. You want to hit the housing. Or you can use one of these service tools. Just make sure you're careful with the boot. And just check on the other end. And you can also use a tool like this for a tie rod end. There you go. So we have the upper ball joint, the tie rod end, and then we just have the lower ball joint. And we are home. Where is it? There it is. Then we're home free. And for this, I'm just using a breaker bar just to break it loose. There we go. And one last time using the service tool again. So now I have the upper ball joint, the lower ball joint removed. Push back the axle here. And there you go. Okay. So now we have the steering knuckle on the bench, and what we'll try is to clearly knock this out from the housing. If that does not work, then we'll just quickly drill it out. Okay, maybe with some luck we can knock this out. Let's see. Not much luck. Let's just drill it out and call it a day. Okay, let's do it. Now, unfortunately, my cordless drill just died. It just doesn't work anymore. I have an old-fashioned corded drill, so this is going to be a little loud, but nonetheless, we need to get the job done. So here we go. And that was, by the way, 7/64 of an inch. We'll move up to 1/8 and just slowly drill out. So at this point, I'm just trying to clean this up as best as I can. And we'll test a new sensor to make sure it fits well. A little tricky. It is a little tricky unless you have very, very long drill bits or you remove the dust shield. But we'll clean this up. So after 5 minutes or so of just drilling and lightly tapping out all the plastic remnants left over, the new sensor fits. Okay? Awesome. So now we just need to put everything back together and we'll be all set. And also clean this up, obviously. What a mess. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now before I tighten up the upper ball joint, the tie rod end, and the lower ball joint, I just want to place everything on load. In other words, you want to place the suspension on load. So I'm going to jack up from the lower control arm just a little bit, and then we can torque all of these nuts. So the bottom ball joint, that's 65 foot-pounds. The steering tie rod is 45. Upper ball joint is 35 foot-pounds. Okay, that's 65 foot-pounds. And then, let me see what this looks like. Okay, we're almost lined up. So what I need to do is just rotate this a little bit more until we're lined up with that center punch, so we can fit in just had a blank here, cotter pin. Now, don't loosen up to find that mark. You want to tighten it just a little bit more, so again, you can fit in that cotter pin, okay? Now, this is a little hard holding the camera, but ultimately, again, just want to set that up like so we can cut this off right about here. And then on top, maybe something like this. Ow. Okay, let me grab a hammer. Okay, something just like this. Okay. Okay, so again, this is 45 foot-pounds. Sorry, a little hard with the camera here, but here we go. Okay. Now with this steering tie rod, the cotter pins are just peeled back. Okay, like that. And this one you just peel back. Whoop. Okay, and this top one, again, 35 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, just make it really snug. Oh, there it is. Now, fortunately, I'm a little low on cotter pins, and this is all I have, really. It's either too big or too small for the meantime. This will really be temporary. This is all I have. And I'll just order another set online and just replace it next week, but you don't want this. See how loose this is? Okay, just make sure it's not loose like this. The other ones were nice and tight, so, but that's okay. I'll just replace it next week and we'll be okay. And then we'll lower this slightly, or gently I should say. Whoop. Now before we replace this ABS line, let me just show you how close you need to be if you're drilling this out at home without removing the knuckle. And take a look at that. That's your clearance. So obviously you can do it at home. Just be really, really careful and take your time. Coming up here, we have an orange connector. That's the ABS line, or ABS sensor line. Okay. Come back down. This comes right out. Okay. So take the new sensor, you just thread it in. This goes right here. Just push it in. Clips on, and then take a look. We have this opening. Obviously meets here. And then you have a little point that points up that goes right behind it, or forward, I should say. See how this little point? Sometimes they can be a little tricky reinstalling these, and you see how that little dimple goes into its mount. And then we'll clear the code. We should be in good shape. Now the axle nut is torqued to 180 foot-pounds. In my case, I just used the cordless impact gun and just checked the torque with the torque wrench. Once everything's nice and tight, we'll go ahead and just make a little mark here. Now the last step is just clearing the code. Now interestingly enough, on the Honda, the ABS light is already off. I haven't done anything at all, but the codes are still in the computer. So what you want to do is just clear it, and that's it. Now they've been all cleared. Now lastly, I want to check that the wheel sensor is working, so we'll click left front wheel sensor. You could generally do this with hold on. You could generally do this with any scan tool that reads and deletes ABS codes. Okay, let's go for a quick drive here. Okay, so here we go. Let's make sure this works. And as you can see, we're getting a reading from both the left and the right side front wheel speed sensor. So that's it. We're in good shape, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.